Is this really the best we can do? And people say it's the only choice we have. I mean, it's not. You can take personal responsibility, build solutions, and also not comply. I mean, if we have enough people not comply with the digital ID stuff and the biometric stuff, it won't work. And that's what a lot of people said during the Vax passport stuff during COVID is like, don't comply with the vaccine passport. This is a trial for something they want to roll out that's going to be much worse than just vaccines, but could be tied to that too, potentially in the future. You don't take a particular vaccine, your freedom of movement can be restricted again, or you say the wrong thing online, your freedom of movement can be restricted. This world is being built, and it's being built by both parties. And I think some people just don't really want to face that reality and find it doom and gloom and super black pilling when I talk about this, but it actually should be super white pilling that like it's very easy to not comply. Well, maybe not necessarily easy, but we're all capable of not complying. And the more people that don't comply, the better chance of success we have.
Major financial institutions like BlackRock, in collaboration with governments and other investment firms, are manipulating the crypto and traditional financial markets to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. These big whales deliberately create panic and fear to drive down prices, allowing them to buy large quantities at discounted rates. Whitney Webb, an investigative journalist, has exposed how global elites are working to reduce individual rights and freedoms. She warns that the private sector and governments are employing various tactics to exert control over the population. If left unchecked, this trend could have dire consequences for personal liberty. The coordinated efforts between powerful financial entities and state actors aim to consolidate wealth and power through market manipulation. By artificially inducing volatility, they can capitalize on price swings, while smaller investors suffer losses. This strategy allows them to accumulate significant holdings of Bitcoin and other assets at favorable prices. Webb emphasizes the urgent need for awareness and action to counter these efforts. She argues that without pushback from the public, we risk a future where individual autonomy is severely curtailed. Her investigations reveal a complex web of connections between corporate interests, government agencies, and influential figures working towards greater centralized control. Now let's listen to her interview and learn all about the warning she has for us.
I think too, like if we allow ourselves to be onboarded to these digital ID systems and this, these financial surveillance systems, these programmable, surveillable currencies that they've been developing, then it's going to be much easier for them, once everyone's dependent on those new systems, to force things like carbon credits on people. And I think that's part of the plan, because the same people that are the architects of the digital ID stuff at the UN, people like Mark Carney and Mike Bloomberg, I mean, they're all in for this carbon credit stuff. They're arguably architects of that entire system and the whole like stakeholder capitalist model and ESG stuff. They love all that stuff. And I don't think they have any intention of abandoning that market just because people don't like it. I think they're waiting for the right time, that once they have people onboarded to these systems enough and there's this insane surveillance state in place where like, your face is your ID and all of this stuff. And they can just track everything you do and everywhere you go and whatever. And smartphones become more invasive. And we're at, this point too, where like in the next couple of years, all the brain machine interfaces are going to roll out like Neuralink and whatever for commercial use, at least allegedly. I mean, it gets kind of crazy then. And I think at that point, it will be much easier for them to impose this kind of stuff that in the current environment would be a hard sell. It becomes a much easier sell once you have those kind of systems in place. And I think that's why, like in UN documentation about the SDGs, without digital ID, so many of them just don't work, right? The digital ID stuff in the SDGs is built within SDG 16, which is intimately tied up. I mean, Interpol is the implementing partner for SDG 16. It's about building strong institutions and like ensuring peace. But if you look at the nuts and bolts of it, as Ian Davis and I have done in our work on the SDG, specifically SDG 16, it's about completely controlling speech online, complete blanket censorship of dissent is a key part of manufacturing peace here. No one's disagreeing online anymore, so I guess we've solved the hate speech problem. Oh no, well, you just like censored the crud out of like people talking. that's not exactly the same. Or giving like Interpol all this power to basically become a de facto like global police organization, which is what it's been angling to be for a very long time, quite frankly. But you have like, people like, like I mentioned earlier, the idea of this biometric entry exit thing, that's the SDGs and that's Interpol. It's tied up with the digital ID stuff and the financial inclusion agenda of the UN. But, all of this stuff is very bad when you look at, what it's building toward. And if we have that kind of system where like, peace through mass surveillance and like peace through a police state and all of that stuff, like, yeah, I mean, you can have an extremely authoritarian, totalitarian government impose order on a society or whole nations or the world. And you can say that's peace. But that's not really what most people think of when they see the flowery description that they give of SDG 16. But when you read what it's actually about, a very different picture emerges, and they can't do it without digital ID. They can't do it without implementing this whole, surveillance panopticon, and they're relying hugely on private sector partners to build that, right? But again, as we've discussed, before, and as is noted a lot in this piece, that panopticon has been a public-private partnership. It's been these private companies, the same network of Silicon Valley oligarchs who, oddly enough, all have some sort of Jeffrey Epstein connection. That's how close-knit they all are. Have done it with like, In-Q-Tel funding or some sort of, federal backing of some variety. And almost all of them, I'm pretty sure all of them actually, the biggest tech companies are government contractors, either for the military or intelligence or other parts of the government. So, I don't really think it's fair to talk about some of these VC firms as just, venture capitalists and, they're free market capitalists and, American success story stuff. I mean, they're there because a particular network like selected them and ensured their success. And there's a lot of, incubators for those type of networks around. The one we focus on in the piece we've sort of been mentioning on and off today is called Endeavor. It's backed by the Bronfman family, which, comes up a lot in my books as it relates to the Epstein scandal, and also Piero Migliara of eBay. And has a lot of ties to the PayPal network because Reid Hoffman is one of their main dudes, and they've developed a lot of these entrepreneurs in the global south that are now dominating, fintech in places like Argentina and beyond.
Webb suggests that the push for digital IDs and centralized control over Bitcoin is part of a larger agenda to consolidate power and wealth. The cryptocurrency landscape is undergoing a significant transformation as major financial institutions like BlackRock and Fidelity make substantial inroads into the Bitcoin market. This shift has sparked intense debate within the crypto community, particularly among Bitcoin maximalists, regarding the potential benefits and risks of institutional involvement. BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust Bybit and Fidelity's Wise Origin Bitcoin Fund FBTC have collectively amassed a staggering 2.5% of the total Bitcoin supply, representing over $30 billion in value. Bybit alone holds 347,766.96 BTC, worth $20.32 billion, doubling the holdings of Fidelity's FBTC. This significant accumulation by institutional investors has raised concerns about market manipulation and centralization of Bitcoin ownership. The entry of these financial giants into the crypto space is seen by some as a positive step towards mainstream adoption. Their involvement lends credibility to Bitcoin as an asset class and may attract more institutional investors, potentially driving up demand and price. However, critics argue that this concentration of ownership in the hands of a few large players could lead to increased market manipulation and volatility. The WEF's approach to digital ID involves centralized systems that purportedly don't offer individuals control over their data. However, with proper safeguards and precautions, these systems can never potentially be co-opted by powerful entities to further their own interests. Arthur Hayes, a prominent figure in the crypto space, has suggested that political forces may attempt to induce stock market rallies before the November election to influence public sentiment. The global financial landscape is also shifting, with the dominance of the US dollar in global reserves declining to 58%. In light of these developments, it's crucial for individual investors to stay informed about key events in the crypto space. In conclusion, the entry of major players like BlackRock and Fidelity into the Bitcoin market represents a double-edged sword for the cryptocurrency community. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.